He was like, these guys are doing some amazing behavioral analytics, and they were able to identify that we were doing something wrong. Or so I was doing something bad, rather. And I had to say to him, I was like, Jacoby, that isn't what happened. We don't know you were doing something wrong or something bad. We just have a restriction that stops PowerShell from reaching out to the internet. So we don't need to know that behavior is malicious. We just put a control or a rule in place to stop that from being able to happen. And it literally, his mind was blown. He was.
We are the Keyboard Samurai, a podcast focused on sharing insights to help those working in cybersecurity companies, be them technology or services. Each session, your host, Will Klusovsky, aka Will Clue, sits down with professionals in our industry to illuminate topics that will help your security biz, team, or self be better. Let's hack into it now. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Another exciting episode. Today, I am joined by a legend in the industry.
Too kind.
Rob. Why don't you go ahead and give us the 30 seconds of who you are and why we care?
I am Rob Allen. I'm Chief Product Officer in ThreatLocker, and why you should care. Oh my God, I've just hit a blank. Why you should care? Because I'm a legend, according to some people. Maybe not myself, but look, we are who we are.
Yeah, I love that. That's the... I was just given a presentation this year, and somebody pointedly asked me, they're like, so 26 years in industry, so you consider yourself an expert? And I coyly said, that's not for me to say.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair. But look, if other people want to call me a legend, then that's fine. We'll run with it.
That's great. So we're going to chat building security products that actually solve problems. As we talked at the beginning, I get a lot of startups and a lot of products that want to pitch to you, and they come up and they say, hey, look at what our stuff does. The same as everybody else, only different, right? But not really. Yeah. And the first question I usually ask is, well, what business problem do you solve? And I'd say half of them can answer it, and most of them don't, because they figured out some little niche that they care about, but maybe not the CEOs and the COOs care about. So I guess looking at you, somebody who's done it very successfully, what's step one when you're trying to figure out, how do I actually make something that solves a problem?
Well, I mean, first of all, you need to identify what the problem is. It's literally step one. The way I look at it and the way I think about it is the problem of cybersecurity is not a solved problem. If it was a solved problem, then realistically, there wouldn't be no need for any other products. You would just buy product X that solves cybersecurity and go about your day and sleep soundly in your bed at night. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist. It is the nature of the problem is that threats are constantly evolving. They never stop. The attackers are always coming up with new techniques, new tools, new ways of doing things, which means it's a constant game of cat and mouse. So, as I said, the evidence would suggest that up to this point, certainly it has not been a solved problem, which means it's a problem to solve.
Right. How do you keep it from being exactly what I said at the beginning there? I found this. The example I always give when I talk to people is like, if you have found this little niche that's going to save an analyst 10 minutes, but the business doesn't care about those 10 minutes that analyst is wasting, then it's not a real problem, right? So how do you go to being like, I found this cool little technical thing, now I want to make it important to an actual business owner?
Well, I suppose the beauty about what we do, it's not a cool little technical thing. It's not a niche thing. It's a fundamental core strategy, really. And it comes back to sort of how to not complicate things, because one of the biggest problems with cybersecurity is because of the complicated nature of the threats. People seem to think that you must have complicated solutions to those problems, when in fact it's actually the very essence of the opposite, which is sometimes really complex threats can have really simple solutions. Probably the best example of this was we did a podcast with David Bombal and a guy called Jacoby. And Jacoby's an absolute genius. He's a PowerShell wizard. He's got some amazing, even websites out there with a lot of resources and stuff around PowerShell and what you can do with it. And he came up with this unbelievably cool polymorphic reverse shell. So basically, it was a reverse shell. It used PowerShell. He'd reach out to an API. The API would give a completely new, different, never been seen before piece of code, PowerShell code that would perform as a reverse shell. Now, he tried this thing against every EDR he could find, every major tool he could find. He tried this thing against, and every single one failed to detect him doing something wrong. So we gave him an environment with ThreatLocker, and he tried his really cool tool with the environment with ThreatLocker, and he thought, oh my God, that's like, he couldn't, his mind was blown that ThreatLocker would block it or ThreatLocker would stop it. And he spoke about it in about 4 or 5 different podcasts. He was like, these guys are doing some amazing behavioral analytics, and they were able to identify that we were doing something wrong. Or so I was doing something bad, rather. And I had to say to him, I was like, Jacoby, that isn't what happened. We don't know you were doing something wrong or something bad. We just have a restriction that stops PowerShell from reaching out to the internet. So we don't need to know that that behavior is malicious. We just put a control or a rule in place to stop that from being able to happen. And it literally, his mind was blown. He was convinced that we had something incredible figuring out exactly what he was doing, and it wasn't. It was again a really good example of a complex problem having a very simple solution, and the simple solution is a control, not a depending on making decisions about whether this behavior is good or bad. And it's a very distinct difference. It's 2 different approaches, as I said.
I love that. Yeah, it's being familiar with the product, I could tell, and having not heard that story, I can tell you, I knew where it was going to end up.
Yep. But again, really simple problem, or sorry, really complex problem, really simple solution.
Right. So it kind of goes back to the idea of solve the root cause, not a symptom.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And again, I suppose the root cause in a lot of environments is lack of control. And that is one of the problems that we solve is that so many organizations, so many environments have so little in terms of controls as to what users can do. So they can run, X remote access tool, because remote access tools by themselves are inherently not bad. They can run, encryption tools. They can, 7-zip or WinRAR. I mean, they're not bad tools. Can they be used to encrypt data and transfer data? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have most of the characteristics of ransomware, but there's nothing in them inherently that says that most organizations should not allow these things to run. So that's why, again, the approach that we take, which is block everything and work backwards from there, or rather I should say block everything and permit by exception, is so effective, and it's so unusual.
That's outstanding. As a former product manager in my life, I'm curious, how do you kind of keep track of all the prioritization of the new features and benefits and sort of that whole mess of like, what's important this week that we need to build and take care of versus what needs to get put on the back burner?
So have you met Danny, our CEO?
I don't think so.
You are aware of his existence, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I don't think we've actually talked. We're probably connected on LinkedIn or something.
He's an incredibly driven, incredibly focused, incredibly clever. I mean, it genuinely, it's very rarely that you can be with somebody and be pretty sure that they're the cleverest person in any given room. So Danny, unfortunately, is that person, and it's really depressing for the rest of us. But from a product perspective, he has most of the ideas, or a lot of the ideas, certainly. And he also knows how to do it, because, I mean, it's gone probably somewhat beyond the point where he knows every line of code, but it's not gone that far beyond the point where he knows every line of code. So he's basically the ideas guy. He has a lot of the good ideas, and then basically we just take his good ideas and we try to turn them into products. And the other big source of good ideas and things that we should do come from customers, prospects. We love your product, but it would be awesome if it could do X. And then we look at that, we evaluate X, and we say, well, is this something that will be beneficial to all of our customers? Is it something that all of our customers might benefit from? And if it is, then again, we try and make that into products.
Yeah, that's the client side is so important. And again, something else I stress to everybody that I work with too, that's making products. It's like, especially if you're in the early stages and you're coming up with something new, get MVP, get a minimal viable product as quickly as possible into other people's hands, because they will ultimately turn it into something different, right?
Oh, very much so, very much so. But again, it's incredibly valuable because realistically, if one customer has, and it's not only new products, it could be enhancements. This is our pain point. We think your product is awesome, but it's really difficult to do X. Well, then it behooves us to make X easier for you to do. So having that customer feedback, constant customer feedback, is really important. And apart from anything else, your customers need to feel heard. They need to know that you're listening to them. So, I mean, obviously, you can do things like feature request boards and upvotes and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, nothing really compares to actually getting on a call, listening to the customer, saying, I can completely see what you're saying here. I can see how this could be made easier. Let's make it easier for you. And that's so much more valuable. So that kind of face-to-face, one-to-one, I mean, it's really important. Like, we've got 60, 70 solutions engineers who are on calls with customers pretty much all day. So they are a great source of customer feedback for us as well. I mean, they're in our portal 8 hours a day as well. Those guys are incredible sources of feedback for us in terms of what we do, how it could be made easier. And if it's something that at the moment takes you 3 button clicks that we can make happen in 1 button click, I mean, multiply that by the amount of times you do it over a day, a week, a month, a year, it all adds up. But it all adds up to ultimately a better user experience.
Right. Well, I love to hear that too, because that's one of my biggest things with new products is, if the UI is bad and the UE is bad, then, or the UX, sorry, is bad, then it doesn't matter how cool the product is, right? If it's a chore to use it, I don't want to use it.
It's funny. So I obviously, we're quite proud of our portal and usability and everything else. It got a complete redesign. I think it was actually nearly 3 years ago now. So anybody who remembers the old portal, it was very utilitarian. It was very sort of lots of data everywhere, but not the most intuitive. Went through a complete redesign about 3 years ago now, and has been iterated on ever since. And as I said, I am quite proud of how it is now and its usability and how logical it is where you go to do things. I have had occasion, for completely unrelated reasons, not for product research reasons, just more for, we're testing our agent alongside X tools agent. We want to see how it behaves. We think there might be a problem there or a conflict, that kind of situation. But I have had opportunity to use other tools' portals. And I genuinely, I don't know how their customers survive. I mean, I consider myself pretty advanced. I mean, I, generally speaking, can find my way or navigate my way around the portal to install an agent and get something protected. Some of the tools that are out there are just mind-bogglingly complicated and difficult and not user-friendly. So yeah, anytime, I feel or I have in the back of my mind, it's not as easy as it should be for us. I just think about how difficult it is in some of the other tools that are out there. And I go, well, we're not that bad. It could be better, but it's not that bad.
A little perspective always helps, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, if you have to remember how to use AS400, or you have to know all your Linux commands deep down to be able to make a simple change, then
yeah, no, that's not good. That's not good.
I mean, it's super exciting for the nerds of the group, and I think that's probably what happens. Again, look, kind of taking that whole contrast between, really smart people tend to develop these products, but not always having the business acumen or thinking about the user or who has to administrate this. Be like, well, I liken it to, I play a lot of board games, like modern board games, and there's a lot of really terribly written instruction manuals. And you can absolutely tell when the person who wrote the manual was somebody who already knows how to play the game. So yeah, when you're absolutely. Like, oh, the interface is really, really easy. Look, it does this. Like, well, yeah, you built it.
Yeah. I have to say, and again, I don't want this to turn into a Danny fanboy session, but it actually is. It's one of the great things that he, both from a technical perspective, as I said, he will literally write lines of code, or not lines of code, entire products very often by himself. But also seeing the business benefit, the usability. I mean, he is a great fan of finding like a word, a pixel out of place, and he will literally spot it. He will say, look, that's not properly aligned. And you're like, you take a ruler. Oh, he's right. It's really, really depressing, but it's, from a product perspective, it makes us all better, because we know we can't get away with something being misaligned or not set up properly, or a button looking wrong, because he will invariably spot it. He will trip over the demonstration and he will go, that's a bug. For those of you who don't know, what Danny considers a bug is anything that bugs Danny. It's a very unique definition of bug, but it basically, as I said, it helps us be better, by knowing that realistically we can't get away with pushing out garbage.
I love that. I aspire to be in a position someday where if it bugs me, it gets fixed.
It's a great definition. It is a great definition.
I think everybody would love to have that kind of power and ability there. So,
yeah.
So we talked a lot about. I'm curious. Have you either this life or other lives? Have you, like, I've liked to do like advisory boards. So we'll get, top X amount of clients, whatever, kind of get them together for a couple of days. Have you seen that being successful?
Oh, absolutely. Too? Yeah, we do that, and it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Again, just the opportunity to get direct feedback, face-to-face feedback for customers is so valuable. I mean, obviously they come up with some great ideas, and I think we've narrowed it down to 2. We used to have 3 or more advisory boards. But just for practical reasons, I think we pretty much have 2 now that we meet with 4 times a year, I think. Again, getting feedback, good, bad, warts and all. I mean, it's probably almost as important to get bad feedback or feedback about things that we're not doing well, as it is about, things that we should, that we could be doing, I suppose. But yeah, no, our advisory boards are really cool, and a great bunch of people as well. I mean, just hearing some of the stories, some of the experiences they've had about various different, attacks that they've seen happen for, I mean, I'll give you an example. We'd one of our advisory board members, he is specifically, he's in the incident response space. Now, it's not really an area that we've traditionally gone into, because we're more about sort of stopping breaches and attacks than we are about responding to them. But this guy's come up with an incredibly sort of innovative approach, which is, rather than what happens in most attacks, is that people basically pull out everything, disconnect everything, turn it off, disconnect from the internet, and it can take sometimes months to get back up in situations like that. What this guy does is he basically deploys Threat Locker. He secures it immediately, and he works backwards from there. So they have a limited number of things that are allowed to run, which is basically Windows and maybe 4 or 5 different applications. And as I said, work backwards from there. So you need to get your line of business application up and running. Okay, we're going to allow that. But it just means that any ransomware or anything else that might be present in the environment is not going to be able to run. So it's a really quick and efficient way of getting organizations back up and running in the event of an attack. And it wasn't something that we'd even remotely thought about ourselves. We're like, as I said, we're more interested in stopping it. But this guy's come along and said, well, what about if you use it after the fact? Oh, that's a really good idea. But sorry, the point is, he mentioned at our most recent advisory board that he's seen an influx of attacks where the threat actors effectively never get a foothold inside the network. They don't need to. They don't need to get into your environment to actually do things within it. They've just got access via either compromised VPN credentials or vulnerabilities in hardware, vulnerabilities in VPNs. And they've, from there, being able to remotely encrypt data on servers. Why did they need to get into the network where they're going to set off alarms and all sorts of things? So that was a really interesting thing for us to understand, that we're, very much focused on protecting the endpoint. But what happens when they don't need to go near your endpoint because they know your endpoints are, going to make their lives difficult? Well, plan B, let's just encrypt data from outside your network.
Yeah, that's crazy. I hadn't even thought. Do you have those boards set up by like industry or size or like?
Typically, yeah. So we've got basically we've got our enterprise board and we've got an MSP board, which are pretty much our 2 different customer bases, effectively. So yeah, MSPs are one advisory board, and then enterprise are the other.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because we actually did a tabletop exercise this year, and the the whole scenario, but like that's exactly what the team came up to. They're like, well, we'll just deploy Threat Locker, and it pretty much locks everything down, and then I can manage this through RMM and take care of the problem. And I was like, oh, well, that's
yeah. But as I said,
Stop
we
the bleeding.
never envisaged it being used for that reason or in that circumstance. But when he explained to us what he was doing, interestingly now, so we've got other customers who are basically building businesses around this. So like literally incident response businesses built around deploying Threat Locker in the event of a breach. So it's an idea that has not only sort of stuck, it's also gained traction. I mean, this is on top of, I spoke to another guy at an event actually recently, and he said, look, I'm getting 90% of my new business from incidents. And my playbook is to go in and deploy Threat Locker. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But again, I suppose it comes back to what we do, which is looking at the problem in a slightly different way. This is equally looking at the problem in a slightly different way and seeing opportunity there.
I love the perspective. Well, Rob, I could chat with you for much longer, but I'll let you get back to work. Where can people find you on the interwebs should they want to?
We are pretty much on all the things. We've got a very active marketing department. So we've obviously threatlocker.com. We've on YouTube's, at the risk of sounding like every YouTuber my kids watch, smash that subscribe button. Yeah, we do some really cool stuff actually on YouTube specifically. They all end up on the website at some point, but we do webinars pretty often. We did, I think, 15 over 100 days during the summer, simplifying sort of simple steps to secure your environment kind of stuff. Some of them are quite entertaining. We did one with Stuff, the mascot from the Orlando Magic. We did one where we tied a drone to the bottom, tied a Wi-Fi pineapple to the bottom of a drone and accidentally flew it into Danny's office window. But yeah, they're always interesting, but they're sometimes entertaining as well. So yeah, smash that subscribe button. And we're on all the LinkedIn's and all the things. All the
social media game on point, as it would say.
Very much so. Yeah.
And we would love it if, don't forget to subscribe to this one too, whoever's listening and watching right now.
Yes, indeed.
All right, Rob, thank you so much, man. This has been great.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Thanks for enjoying Keyboard Samurai Podcast. If you'd like to engage, find Will on LinkedIn at /WillClue or visit at willclue.me. That's WILKLU.me for more info. Disconnecting now. Synac you later.